There is no such thing as dead matter. Proceeding from the fundamental postulate that the best and only true test of the presence of life is the response of matter to external stimulus, Professor Bose has demonstrated that in many instances, so-called inorganic matter, such as metals, minerals, etc., gave a response to such stimulus which is similar, if not indeed identical, to the response of the matter composing the bodies of living animals, plants, and men. He devised certain very delicate apparatus for registering and measuring such responses, the same being traced as curves on a revolving cylinder. He employed that most delicate scientific instrument called the galvanometer in these experiments. The galvanometer will register the faintest irritation of nerve matter or living muscle, and the experiments proved that it would also register the variations of metals, and subjected to the stimuli of outside force, the curves or tracings being practically identical in either case. Professor Bose reports that when he attached the galvanometer to bars of various metals, they gave a similar response when struck or twisted. The greater the degree of irritation caused in the metal, and the greater the degree of response. It should be noted that the living nerve or muscle reacts and registers in precisely the same way, and so far as the instruments indicated, the response of muscle, nerve, metal, and mineral were identical. Just as the nerve or registered fatigue after frequently repeated stimulus, so did the metal or mineral so register. And just as the nerve or muscle registered the renewal of vigor after a rest, so did the metal or mineral. To all intents and purposes, the living and non-living matter gave the same response and evidence of life. Moreover, the instrument showed something like tetanus in metals caused by repeated shocks, recovery after the rest being also recorded. Moreover, several metals recorded fatigue from other causes, and in some cases, the metals showed the effect of poisoning, recovery by the application of antidotes, and also the signs of excitement or intoxication from other forms of stimulus. The experiments also showed that metals manifest the condition akin to sleep, that they can be killed, that they can exhibit torpor and sluggishness, that they can wake up and can be roused into activity, that they may be stimulated, strengthened, weakened, drugged, or intoxicated, that they suffer from extreme cold or heat, that they respond to the presence of certain drugs, just as do living plant and animal. A piece of steel subjected to the effect of poison recorded on the delicate instrument a gradual fluttering and weakening, resulting in final death, just as does a portion of animal matter, or an organ of the body of an animal, or a piece of the living substance of a plant. When revived, before it was too late, the response of the metal was gradual in the case of both muscle and metal. A most interesting fact is the statement of the experimenter that even the poisons which served to kill the metals showed a like susceptibility to the actions of other poisons, and were found to be themselves capable of being killed by poisons. In the case of these metal killings, however, the molecular The molecular structure was apparently not affected, just as the similar structure in the animal tissue is not affected. In both cases, there was apparently a causing of a something within to cease to function in the substance, a something which may as well be called a soul as any other term. other scientific laboratory experiments have revealed most interesting facts concerning the production of living things from non-living matter. Dr. Charles Bastian of London, England, has prepared and exhibited more than 5,000 microphotographs showing the evolution of organic living forms from the inorganic, non-living so-called. He claimed to have produced certain microscopic black spots from a previously perfectly clear liquor, which spots gradually enlarge and are transformed into certain forms of lowly bacteria. Professor Burke of Cambridge, England, claims to have produced from sterilized bouillon, by the action of sterilized radium chloride, certain minute living bodies which manifest subsequent growth and reproduction by subdivision. The ordinary student of chemistry and physics is familiar with what is called metallic vegetation, notably in the case of the lead tree, in which there is manifested the appearance of plant forms on the part of the acidulated solution of certain metallic substances. In the case of the lead tree, an acidulated solution of acetate of lead is placed in a wide-necked bottle, from the cork of which bottle a piece of copper wire is suspended, at the end which dangles a piece of zinc, which hangs at the center of the lead solution. When the bottle is corked, the dropper wire begins at once to be surrounded with a growth of metallic lead closely resembling a very fine moss, which moss gradually develops branches and limbs and finally foliage, in the end a miniature bush or tree being formed. Other metallic solutions produce similar phenomena. Saltpeter, subjected to the effect of polarized light, assumes forms closely resembling the orchid. Crystals of frost on window panes, the shapes of leaves, branches, foliage, blossoms, flowers, etc. Many metals tend to crystallize in the forms of vegetable growth, and this is particularly significant when it is remembered that crystals are beginning to be regarded as almost alive by modern science, as noted in a preceding paragraph of the present chapter. The scientific magazines a few years ago contained references to an interesting experiment performed by German scientists using certain metallic salts. The scientists subjected the salts to the action of a galvanic current and was astonished to discover that around the negative or cathode female pole of the battery, the particles of the metallic salt began to group themselves in the forms of tiny mushrooms with stem and umbrella-like top. These metallic mushrooms at first displayed a transparent appearance, but gradually developed color and finally assumed a pale straw color on the stems, with a bright red color on the top of the umbrella and a faint rose tint on the undersurface. But the most startling feature of the phenomena was that the metallic mushroom had fine veins or tiny tubes running along the interior of the stems, through which the nourishment or additional material for growth was transported, the mushroom being fed from the inside, as in the case of the true fungus mushroom. It seemed that, to all intents and purposes, these metallic mushrooms were practically the connecting link between mineral and vegetable life. As has been stated elsewhere in this chapter, modern science now stands on the threshold of the discovery by actual laboratory proof that there is no such thing as lifeless matter and that everything is alive. This has been the contention of the occultists for thousands of years. As a writer has said, it would seem that in the case of the great tunnel of the Alps, the two bands of workers, each on its own side of the mountain, were fast approaching the place where only a thin partition separated them from one another, and that already they can faintly hear the sounds of each other's picks penetrating the thin dividing wall between the two camps. The occultist may now safely await the day when modern science will actually prove for him the old teaching of the esoteric schools. Moreover, science is coming very near to the place where it will perceive the truth of the old occult axiom that all power is will power, and that the movement of electrons, atoms, molecules, and masses of matter are in response to an inward feeling resulting from the attraction or repulsion to or from other forms of matter, and the will action in response thereto, as Haeckel and Nageli, materialistic scientists though they may be called, have claimed for half a generation past. The contention of the materialists that life and mind are but qualities of matter, and are to be found in all forms of material objects, needs but to be inverted in order to show the truth, long since uttered by the ancient occultists, namely, that matter is but the outer garment of soul, life, mind, and that all material forms are ensouled by life and mind. The conception of the materialist is but the inverted pyramid of error, while the conception of the occultists is the firmly placed and soundly resting true pyramid of truth, that rock of ages which can never be overturned, for it rests squarely and firmly on the eternal base of being. Remember, O student, the Rosicrucians' aphorisms that the fire is in everything and everywhere. There is nothing dark or cold within its sphere. Wow, I love that chapter. I love that because, and this is my interjection here, but I've always heard, I've heard from reading Walter Russell books, which I have several playlists for the reading of those books if you care to look for them. Maybe I'll put them over into the description bar, some of those playlists. But what I've heard is that science, true science, and spirit can marry because they agree. Sometimes people think science and religion don't match, and they don't, because religion has a lot of really silly ideas because they take things literally. But true spirit, the understanding, these occultists, these people that were often deemed as somehow sorcerers or seers or people that God disapproves of, they are bringing science and spirit together in a marriage, and one proves the other. And I've always thought, well, the scientists will one day catch up with the old mystics. And I didn't know what all to use to prove that because I don't know a lot of scientific things. But as I read this book, they're bringing those scientific experiments to light to me as I read this, and to you too, that there's no difference in science and spirit. When they are true science and spirit, they will agree in every way. A lot of people don't want to think of things like this because it's too deep a subject, and they'd rather play or go to a ball game or go swimming or anything else but think of things like this. And I never thought I'd be one that would be all that interested in it myself. But when you start wanting to know God, you start wanting to know this kind of science. And I'm real pleased to have had this book sent to me, and I'm real happy to read it. And I'm thinking the Rosicrucians have done their homework and their research, and I admire them. And I hope others who haven't really understood the Rosicrucians and who have maybe heard some of the rumors about them and other secret societies, that they will have changed their mind by now. Because there's nothing wrong with using our reason to understand spiritual matters, because it's not against the reason of the scientist how that what they're saying here is that everything has life in it, even what we think of as dead matter. Nothing is dead. And I could almost say to you, sometimes I think my car just performs wonderfully for me because it loves me. Sometimes it fixes itself when something's going wrong. The next day, oh, I don't have a problem with that anymore. It fixed itself. Thank goodness. You know, a lot of people have a relationship with a car or a house or something where they feel almost a connection, that they can talk to something that would be seen by other people as dead matter, and that they would be thought of as being really goofy to talk to their car and talk to, different things like that. But I'm beginning to think, yes, it can be proved conclusively that there is consciousness in things like a car or metal or house or wood or any number of things. There's consciousness in them, even in a rock. I told my granddaughter one time that rocks breathe. They just breathe different than us humans. Anyway, her mother said, don't believe that. I hope someday she will grow up and research some of this kind of thing and realize, yes, rocks breathe. Steel breathes. Concrete breathes, we know that. And there's a lot of things. I think everything pulses with a life. It has a kind of a breath. And it might be a long breath that we can't even detect. And surely it is. But it is breath, nevertheless. And it is a consciousness. So the next time you see someone hugging a tree or talking to a rock, don't look at them like they're so crazy. They might know something that not a lot of people know. And if you find yourself talking to the grass or a tree or a rock, don't think that you're going crazy. You're not. Anyway, this is just my little input here. I will get on with the next chapter in the next series. This is the Dove Lady. Over now.